Lots of big games were announced recently, so we're going to run through a bunch of them somewhat briefly, but there were some really cool ones that I thought. We got from Bezier Games a brand new King Ludwig game, The Palace of Mad King Ludwig. This is a standalone sequel, not an expansion. It sounds basically similar idea. Everyone's competing to be the best builder or architect, but this time instead of each person having their own castle, you're all building one palace together and putting the rooms where you want them together. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a cool idea. I like it because you can be more it's almost like, it's less of just like you're building your own thing and you can sort of hate draft. You can more build and think like, oh, but if I build it there, I'm opening up a pathway because you're trying to build. I mean, it depends how the game works. And I like that almost because then it's almost more enjoyable too to see at the end. You see whatever weird amalgamation you made, this weird castle, and then you'll just look at it and be like, so that's why those dungeons in all the video games look like that. It's just a bunch of people competing and building a thing together.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You could use that as a template for your next RPG campaign as a dungeon.
Like I was saying, it would be hilarious if they did this for Suburbia and like everyone's like, no, don't. I was gonna build an airport there. Guess what? There's a school there now.
I mean, it sounds like the perfect solution for people who, if they think Suburbia and King Ludwig are too solo driven.
Right, you mentioned that.
Yeah, which is something where, you are kind of doing your own thing. Like you said, the hate drafting is really the most you can kind of do to interact with each other. But so to actually have to crisscross with each other in the game space sounds really cool. I think it's they said retail $60 later this year sometime. We'll find that out. Next up, the hits get bigger. Cool Mini or Not announced a Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game. So non-Fantasy Flight, non-TV show, based on the books, miniatures game that's going to be on Kickstarter, of course, with Cool Mini nowadays, later this year. And the starter set, I think they showed a picture. It was, it's two different houses, but presumably, I don't know if the Kickstarter will have more at launch or if they're going to add them as time goes on. Or both.
I mean, yeah, and they're almost as a very large guarantee there will be exclusives. I've seen their things. They do that a lot.
It's so big miniatures game. They said large scale wars with hundreds of miniatures or simple skirmishes between a few units. So whatever fits your play style or budget. But this is kind of cool because of course we have lots of Game of Thrones games, but I don't think not like a real battle miniature game.
Well, and also judging by the title, it sounds like it's based not on the TV show.
It's strictly the books.
The books. So,
yes.
I mean, that's another interesting take now with a lot of things, but I feel like Game of Thrones in particular has been a very interesting compared to not even like the Harry Potter and stuff. I feel like usually most of them seem to default a lot to the movie, but with Game of Thrones, because I think it had already such a presence in board games, I felt that even the LCG still uses the artwork.
Yeah, I think the LCG
they redid the artwork when they did the second edition. But
but it's still based on the books mostly.
Yeah, so I feel I just find it very interesting on seeing the two compete.
It is. I think the board game as well is from the books, even though it's called.
Well, there's two. I think there's.
Yeah, there's multiple. I mean,
and that's what's interesting. That's why I think it's interesting when you have to look at them, and maybe that's the Kickstarter exclusive will be the TV show version miniatures of the characters.
Yeah, that would be interesting, but I wonder if they have the rights to that. I
don't know either. Yeah, that's
so
one of those interesting properties.
If you're a miniatures person, I'm sure you'll be wanting to get that one. I'm sure it'll cost you a lot of money. Another licensed one next, Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Card Game.
Oh, it's been a while since we heard from him.
A little bit, yeah. It's based on the Scott Pilgrim comic book, which also, of course, was a movie and a video game. So this is the last medium for it to conquer. This is Renegade Game Studios is putting this out. It's a deck building game where everybody is playing different characters from Scott Pilgrim. And what sounds cool about it is they don't go to a ton of detail, but basically you're going to have double-sided cards, some of your cards. So you're going to actually be able to choose which side that you play somehow during the game as your deck building.
Okay.
So I think it sounds like a fun, probably a good fit for a light game based on Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, I assume it's based on the original artwork style.
Yeah,
Because I know, because I saw the movie first. That's how I was introduced to it, and then them playing the game in the comic books. I was like, oh, there's a lot more to this.
Yeah.
So I definitely am very curious to see.
That should be a fun one. Yeah, that stuff's always fun. My phone's going haywire. Next up, this one is very interesting. Spectre Ops from Plaid Hat Games, we both really enjoyed that game.
Oh, yeah.
Stealth game. Well, they're making a new one set in the same universe, but a totally different playstyle. It's called Crossfire, and it's basically...
Is it still called Spectre Ops Crossfire? Or is it just...
I think it's just Crossfire.
Okay.
It might say Spectre Ops in the box somewhere. But it's more like a social deduction, werewolf resistance, maybe even bang kind of game, where you're all different people from different companies, and some people can be agents, and there's also assassins, and you're trying to assassinate different people, and there's lots of different roles. And basically after 3 minutes, and I'm just going to read their paraphrase, their description, every player has to aim their weapon at somebody and fire a shot. And if someone's the VIP, it's sort of like the king in Bang. Mm-hmm. Like if they're killed, then the game ends and the assassins win. Otherwise, the agents are trying to protect them.
Okay.
And you're trying to figure out who's who. You might also have your own unique victory conditions. They said there's going to be a bunch of different roles that you can mix in, which is where it sounds kind of like werewolf to me.
Yeah, it's very curious to see what happens. We have played Bang. We played another one, the Three Kingdoms, which is sort of similar.
Right.
And I do like Three Kingdoms a little bit more because of the abilities on the characters.
Legends of the Three Kingdoms? That's the full title, or just Three Kingdoms?
I think
I'll see if I can find a box art of it.
And I enjoyed it a lot because I also love the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Is definitely a mythology I like. The one problem, which both of them had, and I'm just curious to see if this solves it. In particular with you, no matter what, you seem to get removed, except for that one Bang game, in the first 2 rounds, and then you're just sitting there.
Yeah, player elimination is the rough thing always.
It is, but it just seems like unusually rough to me, and in the sense that because also it seemed, since you had to kill early on, you don't have enough time to get information.
Right.
So you're forced, if let's say I knew you were the king for that, and I knew there was someone next to me, even if they're my ally or not, and whether I know or not, I'm killing them to get to you.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like in this one you can point at anybody.
Right. That might be the solution. Right. I don't know.
Well, as far as I know, this is also Plaid Hat's first game of this type. I can't think of any other game they've done like this, a social deduction style game.
Yeah, no, they can think of.
And all their games are usually super solid.
We haven't been disappointed with Plaid Hat, so.
Yeah, so I think, and I like that universe. It's it's fairly generic, but it's still fun.
Well, because the game's good. So.
Yeah. All right, and then one more this might be the one I'm most excited about in the bunch.
All right, let me guess.
Yeah.
Munchkin Monopoly.
So close. It's Munchkin Yahtzee. Portal Games announced it's called...
I feel like you just need to say Portal Games and you're already happy.
Well, wait until you hear the title of it. Detective, a modern crime board game. So, designed by Ignacy and another guy whose name I don't remember, but I think he's more like writing the scenarios and Ignacy's doing the actual design work. But essentially, you're all agents and you're trying to solve a crime, and there's going to be multiple scenarios which you can play as a campaign or standalone. But what makes this really cool and unique is not only are you going to be looking for clues and stuff in the box, there is going to be an online component. So I think they're going to have their own website of some kind that you're going to be able to look up, but also you're free to look anywhere. So the quote that he gave was, you'd be able to search Wikipedia to confirm information or check the history of World War II to verify a witness statement. So the cases are actually going to be about real world things. So no longer are you limited to a book or anything. You are looking everywhere to solve a mystery.
I mean, as we've said probably 100 times, we love the detective game genre. Mm-hmm. And this just seems like the next really big step.
I mean, it sounds like a great innovation for it. I never would have thought.
Not only that, yeah, I mean, looking at, because like I said, it's one of those things that you have to keep an eye on technology. And I believe, I mean, feel free to quote and say I'm wrong, we said this with the apps, we're at the point where someone's going to be near a computer or a smartphone 90% of the time. You know, it's not a luxury item anymore, I feel.
Right.
So I think it's fair to start thinking of games maybe throwing in an app or this stuff to help around. And this seems like the perfect one, because not only I think you mentioned you can look up stuff, which is cool, but let's say you would just happen to be a fan of World War II.
I love that war.
But I mean, like something like that.
Yeah.
How awesome does it feel when you hear someone say that and you're like, hold on a minute, like just from your own knowledge, like the fact that like just your hobby can bring into another one.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And considering like you mentioned World War II, that's something that tends to be in the board game hobby. Like if you had things like World War II, or I mean, the obvious Lovecraft or something, like someone to say those small things, but that people can pick up on. I think
almost like a trivia aspect to it. Yeah, no, it's pretty awesome. Yeah, I like the idea a lot, and you know, like all these games, easily expandable.
Yeah, I mean, even if keeping in the ones we played, which are kept in the box, like the Mythos Tales and the Sherlock Holmes. I mean, when we played, there's things like, oh shit, what's a day on the newspaper? And we're like,
yeah,
that makes sense, and we count the days and stuff. Like, so I mean, to open it up so much,
now
it also gives you, for expansion, so to speak, for cases, a lot easier for you to expand because we've had over thousands of years that humans have existed, so you can pull from a lot.
Yeah, it's almost a little intimidating. I'm very excited to see exactly how the mechanisms work in the game.
And just like as we said with the Pod Hat Portal games,
they're great. We love them. We love the ones that start with P.
It's a good letter.
So all those games are going to be later this year, or at least launching on Kickstarter later this year. You can check our links below for the specific dates when they're available.